So, I heard you only graduated from middle school? Why would my dad hire someone like you? I work at a small publishing company. After the former president, Mr. Morgan, passed away, the new president called me in and grilled me about my education. Unlike late Mr. Morgan, who had created a work environment where even someone like me with no academic background or physical strength could manage, this new guy outright rejected my presence in the company. Incompetent like you gets the boot. Get out of here, you freeloader. It was the only job I'd managed to land, but I was pressured and humiliated into quitting. He had no idea that his blind decision would soon drive this small company into crisis. My name is Kevin Johnson. I was born with a weak constitution and often got sick. It got worse once I started elementary school, and I was constantly in and out of the hospital. Reading books became my hobby. I couldn't really connect with other kids, and while my classmates were studying at school, I was usually lying in a hospital bed. My parents worried about me and brought me tons of books. That's how it all started. Once I started reading, I'd get so absorbed that I'd forget everything around me. Inside a book, I could be anything. I could be a hero, a wizard, and even a villain. I could go to space, live under the sea. Books let me experience things that would never happen in real life, and I loved that. At first, I read simple books for kids, but eventually I got into more complex novels. By the time I was in the upper grades of elementary school and had gotten a bit smarter, I started wanting to write stories of my own. My parents got me a notebook and a pen, and I just poured the stories in my head onto the pages. Looking back, the stories were all over the place, but writing them taught me how fun creating something could be. Kevin, it's time for your medicine. Okay, hey, Dr. Irwin, I wrote this. I'd show my stories to the nurse who brought my medicine, to Dr. Irwin when he came to check on me, and even to the other patients in the room. Wow, that's really good. You've got a real talent, Kevin. You love books, don't you? Yeah, I love them. I want to write even more. Everyone praised the stories I wrote. I'm sure they were just being kind since I was a kid. Good or bad, I had all the time in the world. The more I read and wrote, the more I fell in love with books and the deeper I got into them. When I was in middle school, my condition got bad again and ended up hospitalized again. As usual, I was reading and writing when a boy in the bed to my right started talking to me. He looked about the same age as me. Hey, what are you always writing? Homework. Nope, I'm writing my own original novel. Really? That's awesome. Can I read it too? He seemed genuinely interested, his eyes lighting up as he looked at me. I'm still working on this one, I said, then pulled a different notebook from my bag beside the bed and handed it to him. He had a broken right arm, so he took it with his left hand. He propped the notebook on his stomach and clumsily turned the pages with his left hand. I remembered seeing him struggling with his meals before. He was clearly right-handed. Wow, this is good. Like, really good. Thanks, that means a lot. Of all the people who had read my work, he gave the biggest reaction. When he asked, "Do you have any more?" I pulled out several more notebooks from the same bag and handed them over. Each time he finished one, he praised it with exaggerated excitement. Hey, don't you have any illustrations? I think having pictures would help bring the world of the story to life even more. Illustrations, huh? I can't really draw. Since I started writing, I'd thought about the same thing he pointed out. I'd spent a lot of time trying to practice drawing, but I never got any better. Many novels don't have pictures anyway. I eventually gave up and decided to just focus on writing. That's how I ended up giving up on drawing altogether. I see. I can draw though. I got the highest grade in art. You can draw? That's amazing. I'm jealous. I've wanted to add illustrations to my stories so many times. When I complimented him, he glanced down at his injured arm with a hint of sadness. If it weren't for this, I could have illustrated your stories, you know. He really seemed frustrated about injuring his dominant arm. The idea of him drawing for my stories. I'd always created alone, but working with someone sounded exciting. When I get better, I'll come show you my drawings. If you like them someday, I'll illustrate your stories. Deal? He said it cheerfully, lifting his left pinky and introducing himself. I'm Shane Turner. I'm Kevin. It's a promise. I stretched out my arm from my bed and hooked my pinky with his. Just like that, we promised each other. But right then, my body gave out. My condition worsened, and I had to be moved to a private room. Thankfully, I recovered quickly and returned to the shared room, but by then, he had already been discharged. I never got to see his drawings. I didn't even get to say goodbye. It felt like we'd never get to fulfill our promise. That thought frustrated me more than anything. Because I was hospitalized for so long, I had to give up on going to high school. Even around the time I graduated middle school, I kept having long bouts of illness, so even if I managed to pass the entrance exams, there was no way I could see it through to graduation. Still, I couldn't just sit around and do nothing, so I looked for a job that wouldn't be too hard on my body. But no such place existed. And with a body like mine, I figured I'd just be a burden wherever I went. That thought slowly wore me down and made me bitter. I was about ready to give up. Then, one day, my dad reached out to a friend and found a job for me. A publishing company? Yeah, it's run by a guy named Mr. Morgan, an old friend of mine. He agreed to take you in, knowing full well about your health. When I met him, Mr. Morgan turned out to be a genuinely kind man. You could feel his warmth just from the way he carried himself. I got sick often, and being a middle school graduate, I didn't understand a lot of complex things. Still, he took the time to figure out what kind of work I could handle. He was nothing short of a lifesaver. My tasks were simple: organizing files, handling paperwork, and reaching out to authors. A little while after I started working at Mr. Morgan's company, I happened to run into him during lunch, and we got to chatting. We had only ever talked about work before, so chatting like this felt refreshingly new. So Kevin, do you have any hobbies? We chatted over lunch in the cafeteria, and he asked me more about myself. For someone like me, who barely had any friends, this kind of conversation felt genuinely enjoyable. My hobbies are reading and writing. When I was in the hospital, I had a lot of free time, so I read and wrote a lot. Writing, huh? That's a productive hobby. Are you talking about comic books? No, I can't draw. I write novels. Novels? Well, I'd love to read one sometime. Hearing that from the president of a publishing company got me so excited that I brought a few notebooks full of my writing to work the next day. When lunchtime came, I took them to the cafeteria and casually made sure I ran into Mr. Morgan again. You wrote this all by yourself? Yes, back in elementary and middle school, mostly while in the hospital. I see. Well, I think it's a really interesting story. He praised the idea highly, even though the writing was still rough and clearly in need of polish. The world building was detailed and well thought out. Mr. Morgan seemed genuinely impressed the moment he started reading. The descriptions have real punch. I think it would make a great comic book. If you're okay with it, I'd like to find an artist to illustrate it. What do you say? My story turned into a comic book? Yes, you've got real talent. It would be a waste to let this sit in a drawer like some kid's forgotten work. With the president's backing, the comic book adaptation project got off to a smooth start. I was so thrilled, my heart kept pounding. I almost thought I was getting sick again. The artist assigned to the project was a man in his 30s named Ryan. He was a comic book artist already working with our company and had one ongoing series. His artwork was highly praised, but apparently his storytelling had been considered weak by the public. Nice to meet you, Ryan. Yeah. I greeted him cheerfully, but he clearly wasn't pleased. He barely responded, and even clicked his tongue. At first, I worried I had said or done something wrong, but I soon realized the reason for his sour mood. So this is the kid Mr. Morgan's been raving about? You gotta be kidding me. It seemed he was upset that someone like me, a sickly kid, had earned the president's recognition. He reluctantly agreed to take on the adaptation only because Mr. Morgan asked him to. But his condescending attitude toward me never changed. That alone might have been bearable, But Ryan started altering the original story without asking. He added strange new elements and didn't even include my name as the original author. He never consulted me on how the story should be interpreted, and he rarely answered my calls. So, the production moved forward without my input. Even so, I kept writing behind the scenes as a ghostwriter, just happy that my story was finally reaching the world. Despite the behind-the-scenes drama, the comic book was a massive hit. Readers said it was surprisingly well written for one of Ryan's works. The story I wrote was about a high school student who joins a demon hunting club and battles evil demons. The title was Demon Slaying Academy. I made sure it was easy to follow, with signature finishing moves and a diverse cast of characters. The heart of the story was about the bonds between the protagonist, his mentor, seniors, and classmates. Since the demons represented human struggles and social issues in abstract form, it resonated with readers of all ages. The series was sold like crazy, eventually surpassing 10 million copies, and soon, people were talking about anime and movie adaptations. Thanks to this runaway success, our little publishing company rapidly expanded. But just as things were looking up, a devastating blow hit both me and the company. Mr. Morgan passed away suddenly. They said it was due to an illness, but he had always seemed healthy, and there were no signs that anything was wrong. It all happened so suddenly, the company was thrown into complete chaos. The vacant president's seat was filled by Simon Morgan. He was late Mr. Morgan's son. He was still young and had been working for a company in the US until now. It had nothing to do with publishing, so he didn't understand the business at all. Proud of his Harvard degree, he held strong beliefs in academic elitism. When someone like me caught his attention, I was promptly summoned to his office and, as expected, grilled about my education. "So, Kevin, I hear you are a middle school graduate?" "Yes, I've been working here since graduating middle school." "Ugh, why did my dad hire someone like you?" Lately, besides writing the original story for Demon Slaying Academy, I had also started helping with clerical work. But Simon, who still didn't know who did what in the company, only saw me doing office tasks and assumed I was just a low-level assistant. Let me be clear. Unlike my dad, I don't keep a useless middle school graduate around out of pity. "You're fired. Get out of this company, you worthless leech." His sheer hostility nearly made me cry. But I couldn't back down. My father and the late Mr. Morgan gave me this opportunity. I couldn't let their efforts go to waste. "All you do is run errands, right? We can hire some part-timer for that. There's literally zero reason for this company to keep you around." I froze, unable to say a word back. Simon took that as a green light to keep tearing into me. Maybe I should just quit, like he said. The thought crossed my mind. But no, I couldn't give up. I summoned all my courage and spoke up. "Please judge me by my work, not just my education." "Your work?" "Yes, I can't leave just yet. At the very least, please let me finish the comic book that's currently running." If I had to go, I at least wanted to bring the series late Mr. Morgan believed in to its proper conclusion. Out of respect for him, I couldn't let it be finished. I pleaded with all my heart, but Simon wouldn't listen. "Huh, don't be ridiculous. A comic dreamed up by some middle school graduate? Who cares? It's probably garbage anyway." I told him the series was Demon Slaying Academy, but he just scoffed. Sounds exactly like the kind of thing some dumb kid would come up with. He'd been in the US the whole time, so he had no idea about Japan's entertainment industry, let alone that Demon Slaying Academy was a massive hit, with anime and movie adaptations in the works. "If you're that desperate to keep writing, go do it somewhere else. You're fired, and that's final." It hit me, and there was no changing his mind. If I told him about the anime and movie adaptations deals, he'd probably steal the rights and kick me out anyway. That would be a betrayal of everything late Mr. Morgan stood for. To avoid that nightmare. "All right. Then please prepare a document stating the company waives all rights to the work I created. Since you say it's worthless, you shouldn't need those rights, right? Fine. I'll have it drawn up. Now get lost." That was the only thing he agreed to. I bowed to Mr. Morgan and walked out of his office. My resignation was now final. I felt bad for my father, but there was nothing more I could do. As I walked down the hallway, I ran into Kyle, the editor in charge of Demon Slaying Academy. "Oh, did you just speak with Mr. Morgan?" "Yes, I've decided to resign." I said it plainly, and he looked completely stunned. "What?" he shouted in disbelief. "Wait, Kevin. What's going to happen to Demon Slaying Academy if you leave?" His voice cracked with panic, but he didn't care. Demon Slaying Academy had become the company's biggest project by far. It's no wonder he was panicking. "I was told by Mr. Morgan that the company would relinquish all rights to anything I've written." "You've got to be kidding me." When I told him I'd been called a useless middle school graduate and was told to take my writing elsewhere, he sympathized and said, "That's unfortunate, but I guess it can't be helped." It seemed he, too, had his own frustrations with the way Mr. Morgan was running things. Come to think of it, I'd never heard of a publishing president who didn't understand the state of Japan's entertainment industry. "So you're going to keep the series going somewhere else?" "Yes. I don't want it to end unfinished, so that's the plan." "In that case, I know a great publisher. Let me introduce you." He recommended a major publisher that everyone would recognize. Apparently, a friend of his worked there, and he was willing to reach out on my behalf. But would a company that big really take me in? "Don't worry, you've got the best calling card. The rights to Demon Slaying Academy, and the title of original creator." It felt strange to say it myself, but yes, those would be powerful assets when moving to a competitor. I'm basically the series' biggest fan. I'm really looking forward to seeing it continue. I promise, I'll finish it properly. After all the yelling and insults I just endured from Simon, Kyle's kind words were almost too warm to handle. Tearing up, I bowed and thanked him deeply. The publisher Kyle introduced me to turned out to be every bit as huge as I'd imagined. Not just in reputation, but in the size of the company itself. The building alone was intimidating. As I stared up at its towering structure, my stomach started to twist. Though I didn't get sick as often as when I was younger, moments like this still brought on discomfort. "Excuse me, are you okay? You're looking really pale." Someone suddenly spoke to me. It was a guy around my age. I smiled and told him I was fine, and he suddenly looked shocked. I was wondering what was going on when he burst into a big grin and shouted, "Wait, Kevin, it's really you, isn't it?" Yeah, that's me." He clearly knew who I was, so I dug through my memory. As I looked at his face, it all came back to me. "Shane." That's right. It was Shane, the boy I met in the hospital all those years ago. We'd been abruptly separated when my condition worsened, and I never got to say goodbye. To run into him here of all places was surreal. "Shane, what are you doing here?" "I had some business at this publisher." "What about you?" "I'm here for a meeting too." What a crazy coincidence. It turned out he also had business with someone in the comic books department. The coincidence was almost eerie, and we held hands and laughed, overjoyed at the reunion. We parted briefly at the front desk, and I gave my name and appointment. A few minutes later, the person Kyle had contacted came to greet me. His name was Jacob. "Welcome, Kevin." Kyle told me what happened. "It sounds like you've been through a lot. It's my fault for being a useless middle school graduate, I guess." Come on now. Let's not just stand here. This way, please." We took the elevator up and were led into a meeting room. Inside, a man was already waiting. "Hello, I'm Adrian, the editor-in-chief." "Hi, I'm Kevin." It seemed Jacob had already spoken to him, and we jumped straight into discussions about relaunching Demon Slaying Academy. I have to say, I'm really surprised. I never imagined the original creator of Demon Slaying Academy would choose our company. Thank you for having me. If not for this chance, that hit series might have fallen apart. What began as small talk soon turned into an in-depth planning session. All the complicated legal matters would be handled by the company, so I was free to focus on writing. We worked out the relaunch schedule and other key steps. It was a productive and hopeful meeting until a knock interrupted us. "Excuse me, I was told to join this meeting." "Shane?" It was Shane who stepped into the room. We both looked at each other in total confusion until Jacob explained. "Oh, you two know each other?" "Actually, we held a selection process for a new artist for Demon Slaying Academy, and everyone agreed that Shane was the best choice. His artwork was known for its delicate details and intense energy, making him a perfect match for the story's bold moves and colorful cast." Wait, hold on. So Kevin is the original author of Demon Slaying Academy? Yeah, my name never showed up anywhere, so no one really knew. The previous artist, Ryan, had refused to credit me, even when the late Mr. Morgan requested it. I had given up on it, thinking as long as my rights were protected, the credit didn't matter. "Are you really saying I can draw this?" "I get to illustrate your story, Kevin?" Shane's voice was full of emotion, like he might cry at any second. Seeing him that happy nearly brought tears to my own eyes. When Jacob and Adrian nodded and said, "We're counting on you," Shane bowed deeply in gratitude. Not long after, he showed me the rough drafts based on my script. Come to think of it, this was the first time I'd ever seen his artwork. Back then, we never got the chance. These are just rough sketches, but this is the general idea. Whoa, the detail is insane, and you're going to polish it even more. The line work was delicate. The page layouts were dynamic and powerful. The panel flow was natural and cinematic. Every part of it looked like the work of a top-tier comic book artist. Shane insisted it was just a draft, but even at this stage, it already surpassed Ryan's work. His art style fit Demon Slaying Academy perfectly. It's incredible, and it's exactly how I imagined it. I said it without exaggeration, and Shane beamed with joy. I couldn't help but jump with excitement, like a little kid. We did it, Kevin. We finally kept our promise. That promise we made that day in the hospital. The vow that Shane would illustrate my story has finally been fulfilled here and now. That dream, once thought impossible, had come true. Yeah, Shane. We shook hands again, laughing together. His face still had that same innocent smile I remembered from childhood. A while later, Demon Slaying Academy launched its new serialization. Then, one day, my phone rang. "Ryan? Hello? Hey, you." I almost dropped my phone, startled by the sudden shouting. "Why are you yelling like that out of nowhere?" "Don't. Why me? You just up and quit the company." "Ah, so that's what this was about. It's been over a month since I left. Why is he getting worked up now?" "Well, I was fired by Mr. Morgan, so I didn't have much of a choice." "Don't give me that crap. And now my series is canceled? Nobody's gonna read your story without me drawing it. Give me back the rights. Demon Slaying Academy is mine." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He kept ranting and raving, so I just stayed silent and waited for him to calm down. "If you got a problem, take it up with Mr. Morgan. He's the one who handed over the rights to me. He told me to take my work elsewhere, so I did exactly that." Even after explaining, Ryan started yelling again. Eventually, he started saying nonsense like, "If you're going to another publisher to continue the story, I should go too and draw it." He actually believed the success of Demon Slaying Academy was all thanks to him. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Sure, it was a huge hit, but many of the complaints from readers were about things that weren't in the original. All of those were changes Ryan added on his own. "You always looked down on me, didn't you? If that's the case, then why bother clinging to my story? Just find a new writer or create your own from scratch. You're the brilliant artist who made Demon Slaying Academy a hit, right?" "You little." Ryan kept rambling on and on after that. Fed up, I just pretended to listen, waiting for the right moment to say what I needed to say. I didn't write that story on a whim. I spent time carefully building the world and its structure. But you changed things without even talking to me. And on top of that, you refused to credit me. That's just not right. After all his bluster, he suddenly had nothing to say. You won't be drawing Demon Slaying Academy ever again. Goodbye." I hung up the phone before he could respond. It was my first real argument with someone, and it left me shaken and exhausted. But it also felt like a huge weight had been lifted. Now what's this? Not even a minute later, my phone rang again from Simon. "Hello? Kevin, it's me, Simon. Listen, I want to apologize for how I treated you. I shouldn't have fired you. Please come back. We'd love for you to write Demon Slaying Academy here again." He must have finally realized what a mistake it was to give up the series. Someone must have told him, Ryan or maybe Kyle. He was trying to sound remorseful, but I wasn't buying it. He didn't care about me. He only wanted the profit and prestige the series brought in. So I decided to shut it down. Getting the company to release the rights back then was the best decision I've ever made. The series has upcoming multimedia adaptations, you know. But I guess that has nothing to do with you now. Goodbye. Wait, just hear me out. Simon sounded like he still had more to say, but I didn't want to hear his voice anymore. Just like with Ryan, I hung up. To avoid further headaches, I blocked both their numbers. Together with Adrian, Jacob, and Shane, we decided to relaunch Demon Slaying Academy from scratch. Since the art had changed, we used that as an opportunity to rebrand it as a remake and started serialization again from the prologue. That way, we could strip out all the unwanted additions. Shane's illustrations, as always, matched my vision perfectly. Readers began saying things like, "The art and story are even better this time around." Of course, that made me happy. But what touched me the most was seeing my name in print. The names of Shane Turner and Kevin Johnson were side by side. The first time I saw that, I genuinely teared up. Online, there were tons of articles and posts like the mystery behind a hit comic book's publisher switch. I checked them out when I had time, but most of them were way off the mark. Well, I supposed all those online rumors just proved how much attention the comic book was getting. Since I stopped answering his calls, Simon has apparently tried to contact me through the company. But the last time I saw him in person was the day I resigned. Thankfully, the legal team here has been blocking his attempts. Being at a big company came with that kind of protection, and it was reassuring. Eventually, Simon's company went bankrupt. I owed a huge debt to the late Mr. Morgan, so seeing the company go under made me sad. After I left, a lot of the talented staff began quitting too, unwilling to work under Simon. That led to the collapse of the company. All of it, the chaos and the downfall, happened because Simon became president. If only, when late Mr. Morgan passed, they'd let one of the experienced employees who truly understood publishing take over. But there was no use dwelling on the past. It's really gone. I happened to be in the neighborhood and passed by the old building. The publisher's sign had been taken down, and some kind of renovation work had begun. I didn't feel joy, but I wasn't exactly devastated either. It was hard to describe, just a complicated mix of emotions. Later, Demon Slaying Academy became a global phenomenon thanks to the multimedia adaptations. It made me proud to know so many people had read it. If it weren't for you, Kevin, I don't think I'd have made it this far as an artist. And if it weren't for your art, Shane, this story never would have gotten this far either. Demon Slaying Academy was nearing its climax and would wrap up in a few months. We'd already started developing our next project. Of course, Shane would handle the illustrations. Here's to more great work together, my partner. Yeah, let's keep it going, Shane. That promise we made in a hospital room didn't end with just one story. We planned to keep creating again and again together. After Demon Slaying Academy ended, we went on to release several more hit titles. People started calling us a legendary duo. I get inspired just by looking at Shane's drawings, and he brings my stories to life exactly as I imagine them. Maybe that's what makes a true creative duo. I guess the reason we complement each other so well is because our visions are perfectly aligned. We bounce ideas back and forth, discussing this and that, until we create something truly amazing together. That's what collaboration really is. One day, we received a fan letter from a child. He said he was often hospitalized due to poor health. But ever since I got into Demon Slaying Academy, every day feels fun. It reminded me of my younger self, sick, stuck in a hospital, and clinging to stories for hope. Writing and reading were my way of holding on. I never want to forget how I felt back then. I want to keep creating stories. I want to bring hope to people. With that in mind, I pick up my pen again today.